Okay, hi everybody, I just wanted to go through my current joystick setup for Battleground Europe and try and give you some tips. I'm currently using a Herman Miller cell chair to sit on, which I've had for about 15 years now, and it's just extremely comfortable. It's not cushiony or anything, it's got like a interlocked plastic bead thing that you sit on, and it's just really extremely comfortable. It's adjustable in pretty much every way that you can think of. So that's my chair. It's expensive, but it's worth investing in something decent to sit on for a long time. Second tip is you don't need a fucking big monitor. Mine's currently 22-inch and that's fine, as long as it's got a decent refresh rate, like I don't know, 75 Hz or something, and you should be okay. Otherwise things start to get a bit blurry. You don't want to position your monitor behind a window as well, which I've got, because the light shines through and you just fucking can't see anything on against the monitor. It's terrible. So try to avoid that if possible. Joystick wise, I used to have to begin with, Satex Cyborg 3D, which was like a cheap joystick. It cost about 20 quid. It was okay. It had a twist stick for the rudder, it had a throttle here, but it didn't have many buttons, and the top hat for views eventually died on me. But up until then, I thought it was a pretty good joystick, and my gunnery was okay. But you were kind of limited with the amount of buttons you could use. Ideally, you want a hands-on throttle and setup, which is what I've currently got, so you can separate your rudder and your trim from your joystick. And you also want trackir, which is that thing there, coupled with this on your headset. Mine broke, so I've just had to fucking duct tape it on, which is still just as good. And yeah, my Satex broke after 2 years, so I decided I didn't want to go back for using another one of them. Now, who I was flying with at the time, BMBM recommended the CH products, but I didn't go with that. I decided to go with a Thrustmaster Cougar hot S setup instead, which was a bit of a mistake for me because the Satex had a light spring, like this CH products, whereas the Thrustmaster had a stiff spring, and I just could not get used to it. Now, in my opinion, a stiff spring is more difficult to learn than a light spring, and so this is why I got rid of it. After about 6 months I just couldn't get used to it at all, and believe me, I fucking tried, but around the centre, and it was just too stiff. I think you probably have to play with it about a couple of years for the spring to die down or something, and it just fucking took forever, and I could not get those shots that I wanted, so I got rid of it. And I went with this, which is a CH Products Fire Stick USB, the Pro Throttle and the Pro Pedals, and I'm glad I did. They're made in the USA, so the build quality is very good. They'll last a long time, but you've got to do a little bit of maintenance every now and then. You've got to clean them. Like for example down here, you don't want to get dust in here or on there. Same for the rudder pedals. If you're doing a lot of vacuuming, well, you will be, just vacuum that area out on the rudder pedals, because if dust gets in there, it'll fuck them up. Same for these. And if, like me, you've got your tower there next to it, it's just going to deposit a load of dust near them, and shit gets there anyway. So keep them clean, because your rudder pedals are very important. You don't want to lose that centre, which is what happened to my first pair when they got a load of dust in them. I put them away for storage for about 2 years, came back, and I used them for a while, but then it was off centre. Same for the joystick, it was spiking because it got a lot of dust in here and shit, so keep them clean. Tips wise, the rudder pedals, yeah. When you're calibrating the rudder pedals, you want to make sure you get that number for the centre the same every time. Mine's currently 29. yours might be 30, but keep it the same, and then you're always using the same center. Now, because this joystick has a very loose spring, it's very sensitive, and when you first start off flying, and it's your first joystick, you're going to grip this fucking joystick like your life depends on it. Now, you may remember this when you first started out, but after a while, well, 2 fucking years more like, you're going to relax your hand and have a very light touch on the joystick to get that nice sensitive movement and keep the stick steady. But when you first start off, you're going to be really on a fucking death grip and holding the joystick as hard as you can because you don't want to die. But don't do that. And same thing for the trigger, because when you do come to shoot, you're going to mash that in and move the joystick as well, which you don't want to do. So relax your hand, get in a comfortable position, and think about when you do pull the trigger, you don't want to move the joystick, you want to keep it steady at all angles and positions, because that's what gets you kills. Whereas if you're fucking ham-fisting it and really brutal, you're going to fuck it up. And where you position the joystick as well, like where my arm rests on the arm pad, I want it straight off towards the joystick. I don't want it off at an angle like over here, because that's uncomfortable and it just doesn't work. You want it straight and close as well. You don't want to be leaning forwards to get the joystick all the way through its full way of movement. And you don't want your elevator trim, which is fine adjustments for when you're coming into aim, and which you should be using all the time really, on here, because when you do use that, you're also moving the stick back and forth as well. Same with the view hats, you move that back and forth, the joystick as well if you're not careful. So instead of having the view hats on there, it's best to buy trackir, which I know is a ball ache to use and learn, but it's just so much better than using a top hat. And you'll come to realise it after so many weeks or months, however long it takes to fucking learn it. Some people complain about getting seasick, but I don't see how you can do that. Your mind will overcome it, and you'll be watching, if you do get fraps eventually, and you watch your videos replaying your moves, as you're watching the videos, without thinking, your head will move as your head moves on the screen to look around. It just becomes instinctively. You don't think about it. You may get a bit of neck pain at first, but you'll overcome it. It's well worth it. So yeah, you don't want that many buttons on this joystick, you just want the trigger. Now I've got secondary fire up on here, you can have that as well, that's not a problem. I've got my fraps button on there, my whip down here. On the throttle, I've got my elevator trim down here on my thumb. I've got my engine settings, RPMs up and down. I've got my gun sight zoom here with a bit of sellotape on to remind me not to use it, because a lot of people, when they first see the enemy, they'll point towards him and just put him in gun zoom and keep an eye on him, when they should be checking what else is around them, because there's not always just one guy to shoot at, there's more like fucking 5. So bear that in mind. I've got my engine settings there, and my flaps, combat flaps here, my voice comms button, transmit here, my map here, and just keep them separate from the trigger finger basically, because you want to keep this steady for when you're aiming and be comfortable. I remember previously I said that you shouldn't really aim with your arm rested on the armrest, which is complete bullshit. You can do that and learn and condition yourself to do that, but the main thing I wanted to say was, if you're in a dogfight and it's at dusk or dawn and you're having trouble seeing the enemy, you're going to lean forwards to keep them in view, and then your arm's going to come up as well off the armrest, and you just want to keep it in a right angle off your body and keep it nice and straight, and then you'll have that real sensitive aim on the joystick. You'll be able to get those stall shots or long range shots when the enemy's trying to run away from you or is really close. And yeah, that's it really.